In April 2017, Jacob and I left for Uganda for spring break. Jacob chose a mission trip/vacation for a senior trip. Our plan was to teach photography to students at a school and then give the students cameras to take pictures. The pictures the students take could then be sold and the money could be used to pay for the students' continued education.
Here we are, we're flying over Africa. We're about 2 hours away from Entebbe. The thing I'm most looking forward to is getting a chance to teach the kids and give them a camera that they can take for themselves and see what kind of results we get out of that.
I'm looking forward to just playing around and goofing off with some kids, same as usual.
The flight was around 30 hours and went through Chicago, Brussels, and into Entebbe. We arrived at night and were met at the airport by Dr. Emma Casada and his friend and brother-in-law, Herman. Amy had met Dr. Emma through an adoption. He is a native Ugandan and a pediatrician that runs a clinic and a school in Kampala. The first thing we noticed was how rough the roads are in Kampala. It was the rainy season and the roads had deep ruts and potholes. Herman was nice enough to let us stay for the week at his house. They had a very nice place and his wife Eve cooked delicious meals for us. The next day we got to help make chapatis for breakfast. They were delicious. Then we walked to school. Dr. Emma founded the school 2 years ago. It has a couple hundred students. Our class had 16 students and we went around and introduced each other. The students were really shy at first, but were very respectful. Our first lesson was just the basics of the camera and photo composition. The kids loved playing with the cameras. That afternoon, Dr. Emma and Herman took us around Kampala for souvenirs and sightseeing. Then, for dinner, we went back to Herman's house where Eve made us a wonderful meal. On Saturday morning, we returned to the school for the second class. We went through the pictures the students had taken and they pointed out what they liked and didn't like about their photos. We talked about how to get emotion into their photographs. We had the students write about happy and sad times in their life to inspire them for photographs they could take.
Praise the Lord for Passion Christian High School for providing facility. May the good Lord bless our passion. Long live our school. May the Lord bless you.
Like being an engineer, it takes a lot.
After lunch, Jacob spoke to the students to encourage them to follow their dreams and to stick with their studies.
But first, if you want to do anything, you have to dream about it. You have to dream big. You want to do things. I've dreamed to be a pilot since I was 5 years old. It's always something that I've wanted to do.
That afternoon, the school had a football match and they asked Jacob and I to be the officiants. We shook hands with the two teams and announced the beginning of the match. Later that day, Dr. Emma took us to the corn and goat farm he has been building to support the school. His goal is to grow the food needed for the school meals. We got to try some jackfruit. It was delicious. On Sunday, we got up for church.
Even
Dr. Emma had asked me to say a few words at the service. I asked what he had in mind, and he said I could do the typical 45-minute sermon. I didn't have that in me, so I told him I would need backup.
Today, I want to talk to you from the book of Joshua. They had been wandering in the desert for 40 years. God had a miracle in mind for the Israelites.
We come to listening to the word of the Lord. Many of us doze and we sleep.
After church, we went to eat at a mall restaurant that served whole fish. It was delicious. Jacob loved playing with Herman's boys, Raheem and Grishi. On Monday, we got up early to drive to Jinja, where Jacob and I did a whitewater rafting trip on the Nile River. The first rapids we rode had an 8-foot drop. It was incredible. After rafting, we went to Dr. Emma's childhood home where we ate dinner. They roasted goat for us. That night, we went to a campground to tent camp. The campground had a beautiful overlook of the Nile. We laughed because Jacob and I were very hot at night, but Dr. Emma and Herman were freezing. On Tuesday, we visited a medical hospital in Kamuli. Then we traveled to a village called Chitimbua. Dr. Emma's team goes once a week to the villages to teach the local people about nutrition and to give the people vitamins. They also treat anyone who is in medical need.
Thank you for doing that. And once again, thank you for having me. I'm very honored.
On Wednesday, we visited the clinic in Kampala. The people in Uganda typically cook over fires because electricity is so expensive. They collect rainwater in cisterns for washing and drinking. People in Uganda will often travel on motorcycles called boda bodas. Jacob and I took a ride around the block. That afternoon, we left for the Uganda National Park called Murchison Falls. A friend of Dr. Emma's named George joined us for the trip. We noticed the roads in this area of the country were much better than in Kampala. Dr. Emma said this part of the country had voted for the president. Interesting. On the way, a baboon jumped on top of our car and wouldn't get off. Just outside the park, we saw some elephants. That night we stayed in Pakwach at the Windsor Hotel. Early in the morning we met our guide named Vivian. She took us on the safari through the park. She was very knowledgeable and helpful at identifying the animals. The amount of wildlife at the park was incredible. Waterbuck, bushbuck, Ugandan kob, jackal, giraffes. We saw 4 lions. That afternoon, we took a boat ride along the Nile to the falls. The river was full of hippopotamus and crocodiles. On Friday, we headed back to Kampala. We stopped in Ziwa at a rhinoceros sanctuary. Because of poaching, they are the only wild rhinos in Uganda. They had a rhino donated by Disney's Animal Kingdom that had a baby in 2009. They named the baby rhino Obama. That afternoon, we stopped by the school. We had the favorite pictures the students had taken in our class printed out so they could have copies. They loved them. We also showed them the important invention called the whoopee cushion. They thought it was hilarious. On Saturday morning, we did our last class. This time we taught some of the more creative techniques, depth of field and shutter speed. The students loved those pictures. They had asked if Jacob and I would present a trophy to the winner of the football match from earlier in the week, but it wasn't until the headmaster asked us where the trophy was that we realized he wanted us to get one. Since trophies in Uganda are very expensive, we decided to buy a goat for the winning team instead. They were very excited.
Congratulations for winning the football championship.
That afternoon, we said our goodbyes and headed back to Entebbe for our trip home. We took some pictures by Lake Victoria. Our trip home was long but uneventful until we were on our last leg from Chicago to Louisville. We ended up being witnesses to an international incident as a passenger was forcibly removed from a United flight. Overall, it was a fantastic trip.